So now our topic is fission and fusion. Fission and fusion. So first put the heading fission. Fission. So during discussion on binding energy curve, we have seen that fission phenomena means when a heavy element or heavy nucleus breaks into two smaller nuclei. Then this process is known as fission, whereas in fusion, the opposite process takes place, that is, two smaller nuclei fuse together to give a bigger nucleus. So this is the fusion phenomena, and the first one is the fission phenomena, and the second one is the fusion phenomena. And this can be explained very well about the stability criteria of these two phenomena can be explained very well by binding energy curve, where on the x-axis we have mass number and on the y-axis we have binding energy per nucleon in million electron volt, in million electron volt. So from this curve we see that below 20 mass number there are some kings, some peaks there, then it attains a maximum value at a is equal to 56, then there is a constant value. So this peak is about at a is equal to 56 and the maximum value is 8.8 MeV. Now again we can see that larger be the value of binding energy, then more stable will be the nucleus. So if any heavy nucleus which is in this range of the mass number, then for this nucleus the binding energy is less. But if it breaks into two smaller nuclei, let us say like this, then for both the nuclei the binding energy is more than this parent nucleus. Therefore after fission phenomena it gets more stability. So this is the fission phenomena. This is the fission phenomena. So using binding energy curve we can explain the stability criteria for the fission phenomena. In a similar way, if there are two smaller nuclei, these two smaller nuclei, and if they fuse together to give a bigger nucleus, so this is a fusion phenomena. This is a fusion phenomena. And here we can see that for these smaller nuclei both have individually both have less stability, that is less value of binding energy, but if they fuse together to give a bigger nucleus, then this bigger nucleus has more stability or more binding energy. Therefore with the stability criteria this fusion phenomena may occur to give more stability to the nucleus. In a similar way, fission also gives more stability to the nucleus. So now let us concentrate on the fission. So we can define the fission as breaking off breaking off a heavy nucleus breaking off a heavy nucleus into smaller nuclei of about equal mass of about equal mass. This is known as fission. This is known as fission. And this fission phenomena occurs when a neutron is captured. This occurs by capturing a neutron. By capturing a neutron. So here we can write an example for this, and this example is uranium 235. Uranium 235, when it captures one neutron, then initially it is activated as U236. This is the unstable product. This is unstable product. Then it will finally break into barium 14156 plus krypton 9236, and then there will be 3 neutrons and some amount of the energy. So in this fission phenomena, a heavy nucleus captures one neutron, and then it breaks into two almost equal nuclei with 3 neutrons and also some amount of the energy. So this amount of energy can be calculated as the sum of the mass on this side, on the final side, and the sum of the mass on the initial side. So by the mass difference, we see that the mass difference on the left side is more than the mass on the right side. Therefore some mass is converted into the energy, and this energy is released. So some amount of energy is released here. Energy is released. And together with these two nuclei, we also have some neutrons, a larger number of neutrons. Here it is the capturing of one neutron, but finally we are getting 3 neutrons. So these 3 neutrons may further activate 3 more atoms or nuclei of the uranium, and then again we will have 3 neutrons. So they will again continue the process, and therefore this process will be like the chain reaction. Now the breaking into two smaller nuclei is not a unique mode. This is not a unique mode. This is not a unique mode. It means that this breaking may be in a different mode. There are many ways for the breaking of the uranium. So let us write some more modes. So one I have written here. Then another is U235 92 plus capturing of one neutron, and it will give again unstable, that is uranium 236 92, which is unstable, and then it will break into ZR 98 40 plus TE 135 52. Then again there will be 3 neutron and some amount of the energy. And let us write one more mode. So that is U235 92. It will capture one neutron, and then it will form an unstable compound U236, and this will decompose into xenon 140 54 plus strontium 94 38 plus 2 neutron and some amount of the energy Q. So these are various modes, and which mode will prevail, that is again a matter of chance. One cannot choose that which mode will prevail. Therefore these are again the probability criteria. Now let us proceed further. So basically we are more interested in the uranium, which is used in nuclear reactor also, and in natural uranium in natural uranium. There are different types of isotopes. One is uranium, it is 238, then uranium 235, and also there is uranium 234, but this is very small, very small, and 99.3% is uranium 238, and then rest of the portion is uranium 235, and very small amount is U234. So in the reactor basically U235 is used. Now why U235 is used, there is some reason for this, because the activation energy. So let us make a table. Activation energy for fission, energy for fission, then binding energy imparted by neutron, then kinetic energy needed for neutron, So let us see all these three parameters, for uranium 238 as well as for uranium 235. So for uranium 238 it is 6.6 MeV, 6.6 MeV, whereas for uranium 235 it is only 6.4 MeV. And the binding energy imparted by neutron in for uranium 238 is 5.5 MeV, 5.5 MeV. So rest amount of the energy is needed in form of the kinetic energy of neutron. So the kinetic energy should be greater than 1.1 MeV. It should be greater than 1.1 MeV, means we need fast neutron. Now here it is 6.6 MeV. So all the energy needed for the activation of the fission reaction is given by the binding energy of neutron, and therefore a very small amount of the energy for neutron or very slow neutron can give or can activate the fission phenomena in U235. Therefore this is more this is largely used in the reactor, whereas U238 is not used in the reactor. The probability of absorbing neutron by U238 is very less, whereas its concentration is very large, but the probability is very small. Therefore in the reactor U235 is used. Now this will give the chain reaction. So before going to chain reaction, let us see a fission yield curve. Let us see a fission yield curve. So here I am going to draw a curve like this. And here on the y-axis we have fission yield. On the y-axis we have fission yield. Fission yield in percentage. And on the x-axis we have mass number. So let us denote the mass number starting with 60, then 80, then 100, 120, then 140, then 160, and 180. And here we have, there are various probabilities. Let us start with 0.00001. Then on the logarithmic scale it will be multiplied by 10. So 0.001, then 0.001, then this will be 0.01, then this is 0.1, then 1.0, and this will be 10.0. 10.0. So now let us draw some more lines. So here what we see that the minimum yield is for 118. This is for 118, which is 0.01. 0.01 and 118. And then the maximum is at A is equal to 95 and 140. 95 and 140. So 95 means somewhere here and 140 means somewhere here. So the curve is like this. It is minimum here and then maximum, and again this is like this. So this is the fission yield curve, means for these mass numbers, uh, it is minimum for A is equal to 118, the minimum yield, and then for 95 this is 118 and this is 95, mass number 95, this is mass number 140. So between this range the fission yield is more, and again within this range fission yield is more, whereas in between the this range are at 118, the fission is least. So we can write here some features, and we in the feature we can write that at A is equal to 118, fission yield is minimum. Then at A is equal to 95 and A is equal to 140, fission yield is maximum. It is maximum. Then there are two groups. For fission. So one group is a lighter group, of elements, and lighter group means 85 to 104. 85 to 104. And then there is a heavier group. Heavier group means it is 130 to 149. 130 to 149. So one group is here which is 85 to 104. It has more fission yield than another group which is 130 to 149. It has more fission yield, and in between the two there is a minimum fission yield, or beyond this also there is minimum fission yield. So these are the groups in which we can divide the fission nuclei. Then in this reaction, as I said, that there will be release of the energy. And what amount of energy is released, that can be calculated. So let us write a reaction, nuclear reaction, U235, a fission reaction 92, and then it captures one neutron. It goes into it will form an unstable compound U236, which is unstable, and then it will finally break into any two nuclei, and let us write it here as barium 141 plus. And as I said earlier, that there may be different modes. There are many modes for the fission reaction. Now this amount of Q can be calculated. If we calculate the mass on this side and then mass on this side, then difference of the mass expressed in AMU will give the Q. and we know that 1 AMU, atomic mass unit, is equal to 931.5 million electron volt. So if we calculate the mass difference and multiply this by 931.5 million electron volt, then we will get the value of Q in million electron volt, and that is equal to 200.5 million electron volt. So this Q is for this reaction. For this typical reaction, the value of Q is equal to 200.5 MeV. So large amount of heat is released here, and this heat can be utilized anywhere. This can be utilized in a good way and also in a bad way. So that is a nuclear energy. This type of energy is known as the nuclear energy. Now there is some theory which is known as Bohr-Wheeler theory. Bohr and Wheeler's theory of nuclear fission. Nuclear fission. Now we have already discussed that nucleus is like a drop of liquid. Nucleus is like a drop of liquid. Now we know that if we have a big drop of liquid and if we touch this drop, then it will break into the smaller drops. So this phenomena is also used to explain the nuclear fission phenomena. Uh, when there is a uranium nucleus and one neutron is captured by the uranium, then there will be oscillation. Oscillation inside the nucleus. And because of this oscillation, it will change into some other shape, forming two poles with the positive, both have positive polarity, because there is two, it is going to break into two nuclei. So both the nuclei have positive charge, and because of this positive charge, they will repel each other. And it will more deformed to get into a dumbbell shape. And then finally it will break into two different nuclei. So this is the fission phenomena as explained by Bohr and Wheeler, and it is based on a drop of liquid. So this model is known as liquid drop model. This model of nucleus is known as liquid drop model. So on the same model, we have also explained semi-empirical mass formula, which is again based on the liquid drop model, and this fission phenomena, the theory is again based on the liquid drop model. Now let us go to the next page and discuss the chain reaction. So we have seen that there is one neutron which is captured by a uranium, and then after capturing there will be breakage of the uranium into two smaller nuclei, but we are not interested in that nuclei, but we are interested in three neutrons. Which are coming. So these are three neutrons. This is neutron, this is uranium, and again these are three neutron. Now this each neutron will again, it will be captured by again a uranium atom, and again there will be three neutron, emission of three neutron. Again there will be emission of three neutron. emission of 3 neutron. So here also there is emission of 3 neutron. So these 3 neutrons will again be absorbed uranium by the uranium, and this process will be continued. So a very large amount of energy is released in this process. And this is known as chain reaction. This is known as chain reaction. This is known as chain reaction. And in this chain reaction, large amount of heat is released. Now this heat can be utilized anywhere. If it is uncontrolled, then it will form a nuclear bomb. And if it is a controlled reaction, then this can be utilized in a nuclear reactor. So in a nuclear reactor, we have to stop some neutrons, or we have to curtail the speed of some neutrons. Therefore, so that some of the reaction can be avoided, and then in such way we can have the controlled chain reaction. So let us see some important parameters of nuclear reactor. What are the some important parts of the nuclear reactor? So let us see that. As I have already discussed that in naturally occurring uranium, there is a mixture of uranium-238 and uranium-235, and this ratio is 99.3 is to 0.7. So very less amount of U-235 is available, and we are interested only in U-235 because U-238 has no probability to capture a neutron, and also it to activate it needs a very fast moving neutron of the energy equivalent to 1.1 MeV. So the main parts of the nuclear reactor is the fuel, which is the uranium U-235, and then they are kept in form of rods. Then we need moderators. Moderators are graphite or heavy water to slow down neutrons, because we need only very small kinetic energy to activate U-235, and we are also interested in controlled nuclear reaction, not in uncontrolled chain reaction. Therefore we stop some of the neutrons. Therefore this reaction will be in a controlled manner, and it will be in a steady mode. It will give a steady reaction of controlled energy. And these two are kept in a core. So that portion of reactor is known as core. Then we have coolants. Coolant means to absorb the heat, the emitted heat or to absorb the released heat, which is basically water flowing in tube, water flowing in tube. Then we have primary coolant and secondary coolant. Secondary coolant. So this primary coolant is in direct touch of the or this is the primary, therefore it is more closer to the core, so it may have some traces, of radioactive element element and therefore it is transferred to secondary coolant. In the secondary coolant, due to heat, due to large heat, steam is produced, and that steam will run the turbine, and then electricity will be generated. So this is the process of generating electricity through nuclear energy, which is done in the nuclear reactor. So in the nuclear reactor we have core means where fuel and moderators are kept, then the coolant, and then this coolant will the water inside the coolant will get heated and it will change into, or it will convert into the steam, and then steam will run the turbine and turbine will produce electricity. So this is the whole process of the nuclear reactor. So in this way, this is the importance of the nuclear fission phenomena. Now come to the another phenomena, which is the fusion. So put the heading nuclear fusion. Nuclear fusion. As the name suggests, then it is the fusion of two nuclei into a bigger nucleus. So this is fusion phenomena. Whereas the fission phenomena is easy to occur at normal normal pressure and normal temperature, but this fission phenomena is very difficult, and it needs very special condition, because there are two nuclei and these two nuclei are coming close to each other, therefore they are facing, two nuclei are facing large repulsion of positive charge, because both nuclei are of positive charge, therefore when they will try to come close to each other, they will feel repulsion, Coulomb repulsion, and therefore it is not easy to fuse, and therefore to allow them to fuse, one needs high pressure and large kinetic energy. So this large kinetic energy should be of the order of 0.1 million electron volt, and to produce such kinetic energy, we need temperature of around 10 to the power 7 to 10 to the power 8 Kelvin. So this much temperature is needed, and our room temperature is only it is around 300 Kelvin. Room temperature is around 300 Kelvin, and for the fusion reaction we need 10 to the power 7 to 10 to the power 8 Kelvin temperature. So such type of temperature and such type of pressure is not available in our laboratory. Not possible. This is not possible in the laboratory. to create such high temperature, but these are available in stars in our sun. So such type of temperature, such amount of temperature and pressure is available in stars and sun. Therefore the source of the energy of the sun is the nuclear fusion. Nuclear fusion is the source of the energy, is the source of energy of stars and our sun. And because these are nuclear reaction, and these nuclear reactions need a high temperature, therefore these are termed as thermonuclear reactions. These are termed as thermonuclear reactions. Thermonuclear reactions. Now there is a theory that which type of reactions are going on in the stars, or which type of thermonuclear reactions are going in the stars. So let us go to a new page. So there are two cycles. One is the carbon nitrogen cycle. There are two cycles. One is the carbon nitrogen cycle, and another is the proton proton cycle. So let us first write carbon nitrogen cycle. So in this carbon nitrogen cycle, there is carbon 12, which will absorb one hydrogen, and it will change into nitrogen plus release some energy, then again this nitrogen will change into C13 plus one positron. This is positron. Again 6C13 will absorb one proton or one hydrogen, and then it will go into nitrogen 14 plus release some energy. Then this 7 and 14 will absorb one hydrogen, and it will change into 8O15 plus release some energy. Again 8O15 will change into 7 and 15 plus one positron. This is positron, and plus some energy. Then this 7 and 15 will again absorb one hydrogen, and it will change into 6C12 plus 2He4. So if we sum up all these reactions, so summing up all these reactions, so this 6C12 will get cancelled with this 6C12 on other side, then 7 and 13, 6C13 with 6C13. So let us cut this with this, then 7 and 13 with this, 6C13 with 6C13, then 7 and 14 with 7 and 14, then 8O14 with 8O14, then 7, 9, 15 and 15 with 7, 9 and 15, and then we are left with 4. 1H1 will give 2He4 plus 2 positron and plus energy. So this is the equation or relation, and this energy is less than the energy of the fission. This is 24.7 million electron volt, whereas in the fission it was around 200 million electron volt. So this is the amount of energy which is released in the this fusion phenomena. And there is also a proton-proton cycle. So let us go to another page and put the heading proton-proton cycle. Proton-proton cycle. So this takes place at comparatively lower temperature. Comparatively lower temperature, these reactions proceed, and at higher temperature carbon-nitrogen cycle proceeds. So in this again there will be two hydrogen, then there will be two 1s2 plus 2 positron plus energy is released, then 2 hydrogen plus 2 hydrogen, 2 1s2 will give 2 helium 3 plus energy, then this 2 helium 3 will change into, or it will convert into 2 helium 4 plus 2 1h1 plus energy. And again let us sum up all these equations. So we will get 4 hydrogen nucleus will give 2 He4 plus 2 positron plus energy. So during summation, this 2 1h2 get cancelled with this 2 1h2, and this helium 3 get cancelled with 3 helium. So we have 4 1h1, and there is again this 2 1h1 will get cancelled with this 2 1h1. So we have 4 1h1, and on the left side we have 2 He4, and then this 2 positron and plus energy. So this is the same equation as we have derived for the carbon nitrogen cycle. So at higher temperature it will be carbon nitrogen cycle, and at lower temperature it will be proton proton cycle, but the temperature is of the order of 10 to the power 7 to 10 power 8 Kelvin temperature. So this is all about the fission and fusion phenomena. Now there is one more concept which is a very hot topic in the area of research, that is the cold fusion. So cold fusion means if we can do the fusion reaction at low temperature, at normal temperature. Then that will be cold fusion, because in the fusion the temperature is very high, so it is not possible to do such experiments in the laboratory. But if we do it at lower temperature or at normal temperature, then that phenomena is termed as cold fusion. So this is an area of research for the scientists. So let us stop here.